This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everyone. If you've tried therapy before, and maybe it's worked for you, maybe it hasn't been as beneficial as you thought it could be or should be, we're going to open up your eyes to something a little bit deeper, and that is somatic psychology or therapy, and the movement that can really move your life forward in many different ways. And maybe this is a way to put some of the meds aside. I don't know. We're going to find out more. She runs deep with this, and she's a master somatic movement educator, therapist, clinical hypnotherapist, somatic and spiritual psychologist as well. She is Dr. Talia Shafir, joining us on the program today. How are you doing?
Hi, Steve. I'm doing great. Thank you. That's a subject, isn't it? Did therapy work? What do I know? How do I know I need it? What do I need?
All of the above. And now let's throw one or 15 layers deeper. Somatic. There's therapy, there's DBT, CBT, and all of that. And that's fine if that supports you. This is, best description, a little bit different, right?
Yes, it is a little bit different. So, when the word somatic is mentioned in conjunction with therapy, often we associate it with pain and suffering, disease. And of course, when pain, we have pain and it persists, it doesn't matter whether it's physical or emotional or spiritual, existential in nature. And it just, the suffering takes precedence in our daily life. And that's when we go, okay, I get up in the morning and go, I need help. So essentially we go to therapy to feel better. But healing doesn't always feel great when you're in the process. But, it's, as a therapist, I've chosen the somatic route so that I can encompass a 360-degree view of the human condition. That's what somatic therapy is, right? It's working with the body's communication system that not only allows us to identify learned and unconscious patterns of pain and suffering, but also to experience the body's potential to support relief and provide newfound support that maybe we didn't know we had.
Well, that's the difference in terms of what you do and offer, because it's a 360 approach, not taking anything away from traditional Western medicine doctors or therapists. But let's be real about it all. When you engage with just your primary doctor, typically you have 11 minutes. And that includes the hello and goodbye. They don't have your history. They don't know, deeply what's going on, where you've been, where you want to go, and all of that. But here's a script. And, now we're going to take care of some symptoms.
Well, that's not exactly their job, and so everybody's got to focus. So, it's all good. We're just collecting information, but, when the body experiences relief from pain and repatterns the movements, those movements that were contributing to the suffering, the limitations of that old pattern of moving in the world transform not just the physical, but the emotional state and one's thoughts as well. So, psychologically, movement patterns can correlate with early attachment defenses. So, in adults, which is what I mostly work with, including somatic movement helps to reorganize, repattern how we regulate and organize our emotions and our mental state. That's why we go to therapy. What didn't happen earlier, we either are going to create new resources or we're going to reconnect with ones we already have. So, to get to the, how do I do this? Well, God, there's a million ways, but I often work with a sequence of developmental movements. And the developmental movements are yield, push, reach, grasp, pull, and release. And you'll see, there's a baby around, you'll see them, yielding and pushing up from the floor with their arms or with, with their
Mm.
body, reaching, grasping, pulling it, and then letting it go. And you see this pattern. If you get a chance to watch a little kid, or you can look at YouTube and search developmental movements. But sometimes I combine that with primitive reflexes and
So
developmental
at this,
rhythms.
well, I want to ask at this juncture, and I totally got what you're saying, where the
Yeah.
baby's always exploring, pushing up,
Hmm.
reaching, the baby could be uh, 18 months and now is walking a little bit and then walks over to the
Uh-huh.
kitchen table. Now we're reaching for a salt shaker. But side note, there's some trauma involved in that because what happens? Mom or dad, "Pop, pop, 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 put that down, put that down." Now it turns into a negative. Why is
Mhm.
movement so
Mhm.
important here?
Well, movement is so important because there's the survival element, and then there's the thriving element. And it's interesting you just gave that example, because that example of kids in an exploratory state. And utopia is when the kid goes, oh look, look what I have, and wants to share with mommy, and mommy's busy, and and says, well, that's nice, go play with it. Then the enthusiasm. Even worse is when they go, well, put that down, what are you doing? You'll break it. And then these are imprints. And
Mm,
so they start to think, well, maybe two things out of several, but these two things sort, well, maybe I ought to pay attention to what mommy likes. Then you start to get into this compulsive caregiving thing. Well, maybe I'm going to look for something that mommy might like, but that's not if it happens once or twice or intermittently. This is how if it happens consistently.
yep.
So what are we talking about? We're talking about the parent, uh, suppressing the child's needs and experiments, replacing it with their own. And so, then, or the child doesn't move and waits for permission and doesn't explore. And so what happens? They become mental representations. We become adults. And, we kind of sit there and we go, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. And I can't seem to have any initiative. And, not that I'm saying that then is the reason. But if we go back to those stages and work with movements, and stimulate some of the stories and some of the experiences, people start to realize, oh, wait a minute, I can move because it's actually a movement. If I want to reach for something I want and I stop the impulse in midstream, and I go, no,
Mm,
because yeah, because it's interesting when you reach for something, when I reach, it starts out the same way. A push starts out the same way as a reach. You're doing this
yep.
or you're doing this. Just something as simple as that, exploring that, or how far can I reach? Am I holding my body and doing this, or do I understand that my whole back and spine and I have that range to actually reach out. And this is a big deal. I was um, I was with a friend the other day, and we were at a part of a shopping center where they had a chain across, and it was low. You could step over it,
Hmm.
and there was nothing wrong. It's just that it was the custom that
Totally
at
got it.
9, right?
Yeah.
And and the person said, "Oh, no, no, we can't go this way." And of course, American me said, "Yes, we can. Let's just step over." And there was this aha moment. It's like, oh, well, maybe I can do that. So maybe I can take one more step, literally, than I thought I could. And so this stage that you were mentioning, the 18 months, this reaching for the shaker, that's an autonomy stage. That's where I begin to explore, and then I bring it back to share, and I get enthusiastic excitement, hopefully, and encouragement to keep on exploring. So you can see how limitations in life can come from, early reactions from
Mm.
parents. Um, and it once again it speaks to how we learn to regulate our emotions and organize our mental states. That's
So
why
I
I'm
want to
big
ask
in
you a question
sure.
here.
Yeah.
This podcast is not about yoga.
Uh-huh.
However, in
Yeah.
yoga, there is reaching, movement, and such.
Hmm.
Is
Sure.
it along the same lines of the same principle?
Okay, here's the difference between that and somatic psychology or therapy, somatic
Hmm.
therapy. Is context. So if if you come to me and you say, I just, I want to do something, but I've got this fear and I don't even know what this fear is about. It's just, I'm kind of afraid to start it, and so we go like this, so I'm afraid to start it. And I see this, and a pullback. Then we're going to examine that gesture, and that's going to bring forth whatever has to emerge, because certainly I'm not going to use a crystal ball here. It's going to come from the person in front of me. And that movement starts to stimulate memory and it emerges. And then we
Just
work
from
together.
potentially a movement like that is connected
Uh-huh.
to a trauma
Sure.
or a memory.
Yeah,
Wow,
sure.
amazing.
Yes. That is amazing. It really is
Mm,
it's really a shortcut in many ways. You know, um it's like uh that's why working with a movement sequence or parts of it can be used as a diagnostic tool as well as a resource for support and rejuvenation. It's funny. Very often, let's take crawling. Okay. Very often, if somebody's on the floor and I say, okay, let's crawl, which is contralateral movement. It's kind of it's a developmental piece. We start out with homolateral and not contralateral movement. But what happens is you should see how adults trying to crawl and what happens, and they go, "What's the matter with me?" you know and so we we do that. But if you're trying to if you're focusing on how am I moving,
mm.
and what am I going to do, and what's the space around me, how is it supporting me, is it supporting me? It's, then you're not thinking, oh, I can't do that, you know
I have
it's
I want to share something with you, and it's
so
this is why we connect here. Had a conversation last evening with somebody I'm very close to, and I knew over years there's depression, there's anxiety. They expressed the degree of it and how
mm,
long it's been going on and the depth of it.
mhm,
And the conversation started because they've been on meds for 30 years.
forever, yeah.
Yeah. And went to the doctor recently because there was some things going on. Apparently, it was side effects from the meds over
Sure.
those amount of years. The question here is, and I said, well, I want to consider there's other modalities out there that might support you, maybe take less meds. There's a cocktail of meds this person's taking. Um, and they said, I've tried all of it. It doesn't work. This is the only way. This is what I have to do. This is it. I almost didn't want to hear it. And I said, well, and, listed all the things done. And I even suggested hypnotherapy to this person about 3 years ago. They did 3 sessions and they're like, it's not working. I know their personality. They just probably, pushed it aside and that's that. What do
Mhm.
you say to, and there's many people, no judgment, many people in this
Yeah.
situation. What do you
Mhm.
say when you hear things like that?
Well, and I do hear things like that. But the thing is this. when you hear somebody say, "Oh, I tried that and I tried this and I tried that," underneath it, I hear, "I'm looking for the thing that's going to fix me. I'm looking for something outside that's going to make me change." And this therapy, honestly, is if you're looking for the magic jelly bean, hey, I'll split it with you when I find it. Because, it's about, I'm looking for what's my participation in the dynamics that I don't like? That's the only question we can really answer. What's my participation? And it doesn't mean it's my fault and I'm creating my own reality and all those other things that, came dancing out of California, which I love. But it's like, what do you mean, what do you mean it's my fault? No. But it's a dynamic, it's a movement. We create a self by moving and interacting with people, places, and things. Um, and that's why the developmental movements are very interesting, because how did you start out and what support did you get? you know I think one
Mm,
of the most profound
mm,
moments, just let me say that one of the most profound moments in the somatic movement training that I had was when we were going through these movements, and I was going through the movement where I first, take your leg and you're trying to push off and push yourself forward. And then you hear adults say, "I just can't move forward with this." Well, that's my cue. Okay. But what happened to me was the teacher came over. She was standing there. I was on the floor, and she just put her foot up against so that my foot could push off from hers. And I went forward and I got it. And I swear
mm.
that, I mean, I've got a PhD. And that is one of the most profound moments in my life. Someone was there to steady, solid, to let me push off, and then I could take it from there because I
Wow.
connected with it. Yeah.
And when you
And so,
say
yeah.
um, who's supporting and when, how are they supporting?
Mm.
What's the time reference? Is that also, could that go back even to childhood where maybe you didn't feel supported? Is that possible?
What's not possible to say these? Of course it's possible. It's where what happens. Look, we don't we don't discard, and I think I've said this before, but we don't discard our early development. We build on it. We build on it. So if there was disruption or even trauma, because not everything is trauma, but if there's a disruption in the system, and we always will find a way to strategize around it.
Mm.
Like the example we just gave about, well, mommy doesn't like it when I go to the table to, so maybe I never use salt with my food. I've got an aversion to salt now. Hey,
Yeah.
it happens, you
But
know.
you identified something here that I didn't even process until now, and I'm surprised I didn't pick up on it. How when we are children, and
Mhm.
my belief, it's where a lot of this stuff is placed in our subconscious, that
Yeah.
we change who we are. When we're children, we're the purest. Everything is there, and then life
Mhm.
changes. But we adjust to make
Oh
mommy and
yeah.
daddy happy.
Oh yeah.
Just in the salt
Well,
shaker example.
yeah.
And then that's where the car starts turning in terms of our development, and then you're an adult and dealing with that stuff.
Then too late. No, no, it's never too late. But well,
Yeah.
and don't take it. We're talking about consistently
Yes.
having your needs suppressed and consistent. If it happened, you look, sometimes when you're reaching for the Ming vase on the shelf, it's okay to yell. Okay. So, but the message we receive from consistent sensory input, and that's touch and look, really hardwired to look at our parents' faces.
Mm,
Um, those messages become mental representations of the level of security we feel as adults in specific environments. So, what happens in relationship? Well, there's something called the average expected environment. So, how we grow up is the average expected environment. And when something happens that is out of the realm of expectation, the brain wakes up and wants to know what threat level it's at. Now that can be an individual, and if you look at the world, that's what's happening. You know,
Mhm.
people are going, wait a minute, and it doesn't matter what you read and what you do, but if you go to the doctor that you've been going to for 15 years and the doctor suddenly says, I'm sorry, we don't take your insurance, that actually is an attachment piece, and people get upset
Oh, yeah.
because but it goes back to all of that. Wait a minute, I'm used to that. But we learn what our average expected environment is, and then we expand it, and we also learn that we can go further. That's the thing. But you need the whole route because we develop physically and psychologically in parallel. And it's true that, several of the major trauma therapies consist of, tracking the autonomic nervous system's response to perceived threat. So that's a survival piece. I've had trauma, I can't control my body, and by the way, and sometimes medication does help,
Sure.
but real mental illness and things notwithstanding, that's not my field, so I'm not stepping on those toes. But you know, when people reach for the pill instead of trying to integrate some agency in both their observation of what really is threatening and they can't deal with, or an insecurity of I don't know what to do with my body, and therefore I can't move and all of that business. When they don't want to come and see. No, I'm not going to take away. Regarding the friend of yours that you were just talking about, my approach would be, look, I'm not going to take this away.
Sure.
That's fine, but let's start to add to your sense of yourself instead of knocking yourself out every time you have a problem, you know?
That's you described it perfectly in this
Yeah.
person, and I believe, many others as well, that they've been in this routine and believe that's the way it is. There's nothing gonna help me. This is the way it's gonna be to the day I'm not here anymore. But there is more. And maybe you're taking three meds. Maybe after some time with you, potentially, maybe two, maybe one. You know,
Yeah, people often reduce and come off, but that's specific. And I always work with the
sure.
psychopharmacologist, psychiatrist. Look, you know, um, when I hear nothing's helping me, I hear there's no one there to help me. So I immediately go,
Yes.
what? So when have you felt like this before? What is that? No one there that must feel terrible. There's nobody out. I don't go, I don't throw it out. I take what they say and explore it. It's like you're saying something. I want to know who's saying that.
We're out of
And
time, but
okay.
what you
Yeah.
just said essentially is what I heard last night in talking with this person. And I'm not the expert. I just shared, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Different modalities. And
Mhm.
they were just pushing
No,
it off to
no.
the side. 'Cause I'm
No,
not
it's not
qualified.
modalities. But no, because it's not a modality, it's not a fix it.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
the you
Yeah.
know,
Technique, if you will.
it's yeah, no, yeah, I mean, yes, that's exactly what you heard. Look, the last piece was the field of somatics has to offer a component of going beyond survival to a newfound whole body experience of thriving. You want to thrive. You don't want to just go, phew, I made it out of that one.
Survive
Let's
versus
live.
survive versus
Thrive.
thrive. Yeah. I will
Yeah.
say this to today. You really made it clear about the movement aspect. I wasn't putting that
Oh,
piece
good.
together.
Good.
Yeah.
Glad.
Wow. And very
Yeah.
impactful. How do we find you? How do we connect
How do
with
you
you?
find me?
Yeah,
Well,
Talia.
you can yeah, really. You can find me in LinkedIn, and I'm website resistant, but you can text me at 707 in the USA, and you can email me at tshafir@me.com. That's TSHAFIR@me.com.
Thank you
Yeah.
for today's insight. And it starts with a conversation. And I know on one side, this runs deep, a little on the woo side. On the other side of it, it's very simple when you, especially the movement aspect, and even comparing an infant, toddler to what we do today. We take it for granted when we reach for something and how that's connected to a lot. Thank you for today. Really, really good.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Nice to
We'll be
talk
right
to you.
back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.